Hey, it's Acoustic Stevo, the Crypto Bard, the Human Patriot, coming to you from Dayton, Ohio. I'm live now. Hey, it's Acoustic Stevo, the Human Patriot, coming to you from Dayton, Ohio. I'm going to be doing a live stream today on my perspective of how to deal with when violence comes to your home, basically, your city. And if you're an anarchist, how do you defend your stance on violence?
Hours. Police are a constant presence there. You'll regularly see multiple cruisers.
What I'm doing is I'm putting on
a streets, driving around, parked on the side of 5th Street,
that I can pause on my radio and turn up and down. And I'm just going to leave this in the background while I do this live stream.
And they did not specify whether security would be stepped up tonight in the Oregon
So,
District, but they said that
I just want to start this out by
security
saying, you know, I'm really kind of angry about this whole thing, just probably like everybody that woke up today, all of us from Dayton, Ohio, that had this tragedy occur last night. And yeah, I'm angry more than anything. And I'm going to pause this to talk about exactly why I'm angry. I'm angry because this person, who we don't even know who it is yet, decided that they were more important than everybody else on earth, and that their life and their ideologies that they're carrying around in their brain are the most important thing. And they aren't. Nobody's individuality is that important, that you can accost your neighbors and take lives for whatever agenda you have. So I'm going to get a little bit into this because it's frustrating as an anarchist who's trying to come up with solutions for how anarchy could work, because I do believe it could work. And then you see scenarios like this, and usually they're far away. But now I live in Dayton, so now I'm dealing with the community that I live in having to have this hoisted upon them. Now everybody has to come to terms with it and figure out where they stand, figure out how they feel about things like the Second Amendment. And you know what? Right now it's probably not a great time for me to be live streaming about this, but I'm just angry enough that I don't care. And the reason why I say it's probably not the best time for me to be live streaming about this is because there are 9 people dead, and there are 16 people hospitalized, 14 of which, thank God, just are getting out. 4 which are in really bad condition, I guess, and that sucks. So they got my prayers. I'm not a Christian, but I do believe in God. I do believe in the power of prayer. I do believe in the power of human being spirituality, and that we don't even really know what we're capable of. So they do have my prayers, and my thoughts, and my sympathies, and whatever energy I can push towards their healing, I'm pushing it. The healing of everyone that has been touched a way deeper level than I could ever comprehend. I'm pushing that healing energy out there, because that's what you got to do. And now I'm going to have to deal with talking to people about this. I realize that now. Like, it's going to come up in conversations probably more than ever. And so how do I go about that as an anarchist, right? Because not only am I an anarchist, I am an anarchist who is, in his own personal life, immersed amongst people who are, I'm calling them statists. I'm not trying to be derogatory, although I probably have used that term in a derogatory way. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper today on this because it deserves it. I mean, we're talking about a mass shooting. So when I say statist, I merely mean somebody that's not an anarchist that believes in government, that believes that government has authority over individuals, no matter what, that they can create laws that are unjust and enforce them because they're given the power to by a quote-unquote democracy or whatever mode of that power-giving quote-unquote authority is to the government. I do not believe in that as an anarchist. And I'm going to be working on, here in the next few years, coming up with some solutions, because as an anarchist, I don't think I can just sit on my laurels and say, anarchy, yay, that's going to be the solution. Well, how is it the solution, right? Well, it's times like this we have to really think about that. We have to question ourselves as anarchists, all right? Because Dayton, Ohio, the Oregon district, is it has a very heavy police presence there, because there's a lot of bars there. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of potential for people to get into skirmishes, which they break up. I've seen them myself. Also, they like to give out tickets if you're drinking too much and they see you stumble into your car. Things like that. So yeah, it's probably got a revenue component in it as well. I don't know. I'd have to really probably talk to the police officers. And at this point, I'm getting ready to make that transition from an anarchist who's just anarchy to going into my community and talking to these people on the other side of the fence. These real statists, where their job is to be a statist, like a police officer, etc. Because a lot of anarchists hold animosity towards these people that put themselves in position to apply a power that doesn't really exist in nature, that's highly fictional, and that's what their whole profession is. And I've seen it both ways, but at the same time, I've had enough interaction with enough law enforcement that I know that there are some law enforcement people that go into it for the right reasons. And when I say the right reasons, that's a slippery slope, especially in anarchy, right? Because how can you have a right reason to put yourself in a position of authority over other individuals and subject them to laws that are most likely unjust? Because most laws are, let's just face it, laws should be set up, if there are laws. I mean, it doesn't even need to be laws because they exist in nature. We should be going on natural laws, individuals and society, and interacting with each other according to these natural laws. And it really all boils down to one thing. Don't steal. Don't steal life, aka murder, which was done last night. Somebody stole some life. Don't steal property, aka theft. Don't steal the truth, aka lies. Don't steal innocence, aka rape, aka molestation. And don't steal anything else that I'm not putting on this list that is a natural right of an individual to have. I guess another would be your right to security in your own home, etc. Basically, not to be trespassed where you lay your head. And I'm learning about this stuff, this anarchism. I just understand it to be true from the get-go, like from the time I really lent it my ear to think about it. I know it to be true. I know it to be true because I've functioned as an individual and a human being on this earth long enough to understand that people have everything inside them to make them capable of living in an anarchy-based society if they were just to accept that and start to understand how that can work, right? And that's what I want to do. I want to help people understand how that can work. So last night we had a lunatic with a gun, with high capacity, I guess. It was some kind of rifle, a .223 caliber. He had body armor. He or she, I guess they're not. We don't even know that at this point. I'm assuming it's a he. Had body armor and extra magazines, etc., etc. And they decided to just go into the really busy Oregon district about 1 o'clock in the morning today and open fire. And the police responded. And this is what I want to talk about. The police responded within less than a minute because they're everywhere in the Oregon district, especially at 1 p.m. The bars close. 1 a.m. The bars close at 2 a.m. That's when people start coming out. That's when people are wrapping up. That's when people are moving around. Last call, moving around. It's definitely a police presence there, all right? And I'm not going to get too much into my thoughts on why the shooter chose that particular time and place. But I do have some thoughts on it, and I might get into that a little bit. But I don't want to disrespect the dead, because this isn't about my agenda. This is about a response. I want to document how I feel and what's going through me right now at this time where I'm having to deal with this as an individual. And I'm going to be immersed in this community of people that are going to be on the opposite side of how they feel about this. Especially when there was such a glorious, when I say glorious, nothing about this was glorious, but the response time from the police to put this demon down was pretty fast, pretty swift. Yeah, it was. It was. Now, I have a couple of things I want to say about that. You see, the thing about a police force is that they're funded through involuntary means, aka taxation, right? That means if you don't pay the taxation in order to fund the police department, the police will come and arrest you and throw you in jail, right? That's where I believe the corruption, the point of corruption takes place. As soon as you start taking the monetary means to fund something like a police force by force itself, you have went against natural law. You have thieved. You have stolen. You have stolen the funds of the people that created the money out of their labor to keep it in their pocket and decided where you want to allocate it, right? Now, if that, the argument could be, if that money wasn't allocated in that way, a lot more people would have died last night in Dayton, Ohio. And you look pretty human patriot trying to even talk about this because there were a lot of lives that were saved because there was a police presence at the scene, right? I can't argue with that. There were a lot of lives that were saved because there was a police presence at this scene. But what I do want to argue is there an alternative to that police presence that could have saved just as many lives? And I would argue that there is. There's another way to go about it. All right? And let's get into that. In a voluntary system with no government, how would we protect ourselves when we're in our mode of going out and enjoying ourselves, having a good time, which is what people were doing last night at the Oregon district? And how do we let our guard down if we don't have a police force that can put down a mass shooter in less than a minute, right? It's a good point to make. How does an anarchist address this point? Wow, I'm just a newbie in this thing, so it's going to be a challenge for me, but I'm going to give some ideas towards it, all right? Well, first off, there are a number of businesses on that street that basically rely on the fact that they have a police force outside able to deal with things like what happened last night and a number of lesser things that happen all the time, right? It behooves them to have some sort of presence that can step in when drunk people get out of control, basically, because that's usually what happens in the Oregon district. So, in my opinion, a way that they could voluntarily have voluntary citizens on their payroll, so to speak, to make sure that this presence is still there, because I do believe that the presence in itself is not a bad thing, right? This is where me and some other anarchists are kind of coming to a head. And I haven't talked to these anarchists personally, but they're very popular. I'm not going to name, I might, but right now I'm not going to name their names. But I do believe there is a place for a police force, but I just think you have to take it out of government's hands, and you have to align it to natural law, and I'll get into how you do that. And you have to, it's just that simple. Take it out of the government's hands and align it to natural law. Put it in the hands of the citizens. The people that voluntarily decide that they want to serve and protect. The main thing that police are supposed to do, right? Serve and protect, and that's it. Not collect revenue. At no point in time should there be tickets being written by a police force. Tickets should never be written by a police officer. I'll repeat that. Tickets, any type of revenue gathering, any type of little infringement giving should never be administered by a police officer. A police officer should only be there to respond to violence, period. So, if you had individuals, and that would probably make a lot of police officers happy, if they knew their only job was to respond to violence. Man, you get some good warriors up in that job description, wouldn't you? Right? And we'd be able to vet them as good citizens, because how do you get that job? Well, the businesses would hire you. Businesses, and they'd have to come to some kind of consensus as well. You know, it'd have to be a voluntary thing that every business would want to participate in. Or there'd have to be some restrictions, like, say, one business doesn't want to participate, well, then they don't get the protection. If something happens on their property, they're going to be held liable. They can hire their own security. And there are security in these bars all along the Oregon district. There are security in all these places, all right? So there's already some form of private security on top of this public security the police officers are giving people. So let's just say we lived in an anarchy, right? How could this thing have went down and there have been a quick response and all that? Well, I'm going to give a couple demonstrations, verbal demonstrations. It's not even an apt adjective, demonstration, because I'm not demonstrating anything. Can't really demonstrate things with words. I guess you could. I don't know. That's an argument for another time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some examples of how it's possible to still have protection. Private protection, right? Private protection. And for that protection to be transparent and auditable. Because we have the technology for that now. So we don't have to there has to be no unanswered questions about anything anymore. People can step out of the shadows. And I know that this is highly maybe not popular in the anarchy community either, what I'm about to talk about. The auditability of private organizations. Because there's the whole thing, like, if you don't have anything to hide, then you don't have to worry when it comes to Big Brother and them spying on you, right? That's not really what this is about, what I'm about to talk about. But it is a little bit close to that. But it's not Big Brother that's spying, and it's not really even spying, because it doesn't, like, tap your phones. It doesn't impede on your Fourth Amendment. Let's just keep it at that. And I believe a big part of the Fourth Amendment is your right to your effects, which is everything. Everything that's personal that you can carry around on you, including your cell phone, which can't be tapped, things like this, right? So there's a way to keep it auditable, though, like for us to know who's employed where, maybe even documentation of their resume for what jobs they're employed in when it comes to things like putting our security in their hands, right? We should know who they are, where they came from, as much about them as possible, because I do believe there is a difference between a private citizen and a public citizen, and I'll get into this in a moment. And I believe that police officers, I don't have animosity towards them, because I just believe that a lot of them, their hearts are in the right place. They do want to serve and protect. They're just put into an administrative role on top of that, and that's their only option for their actual calling. Because I don't think it's a bad thing to have a calling, to want to be a warrior, to protect the innocent, to protect the citizenry so they can go about their business in the public square without having to worry about maniacs like what appeared last night, right? I do believe there's some merit to that type of a society. My vision of anarchy is not everything goes, everything flies, crime's not punished, evils run rampant, people running around everywhere with guns. I don't really mind that part of it. If there are people running around everywhere with guns, those people would have to be accountable for what they do with their guns, and that's another story. But I mean, the guns themselves don't bother me at all. And if that's how I feel about it, I have to give some solutions for how that can exist, because there's not enough people out there like me that do feel the way that I feel about it, and are reasonable people. Because I am a reasonable person. I really am. Yes, I might think I have the right to own a hand grenade, or a tank, or the list goes on. If I really wanted to. I don't want to, though. I have no desire to. I don't even own a gun. I do, however, participate in martial arts, and I'm learning how to protect myself physically with my body, and weapons like swords, things like that, staffs, things like this, which is really cool. Arrows, bows and arrows. I want to be adept in how to handle myself with weapons outside of guns. That being said, I do know how to use a rifle. I've been a hunter before in my youth. I gave it up when I was in my mid-teens, and haven't really done any hunting since. And I don't really like shooting animals. I'm almost a vegan. I still eat eggs because I love eggs. And I plan on soon finding a local farmer that takes good care of his chickens that is willing to sell me some eggs at a cheap enough cost that I can do it and make it a more of a delicacy than a part of my diet. But I'm moving into my diet in a way that I'm comfortable with. There's no hurry, no rush. I've already made dramatic strides. If all I have left is eggs, I don't even eat gluten. So I'm not eating wheat. I'm not eating dairy at all. That was recent. Been a vegetarian for almost a year now. Just a month short of a year. And the years preceding that, I had cut certain types of meat out of my diet, little by little, and there's a way to go about it. And man, I'm loving this part of my life, not eating animals. I feel so good about it. And that's my main thing. I don't want to eat animals. I don't want to. I find their beauty and their life force and their life energy so healing to me personally that I definitely would not want to continue in having anything to do with their deaths. All right. So I just, I'm a very non-violent person, but I understand police officers' desire to serve and protect, because as a citizen, I have that same desire. If I go out and somebody's being assaulted in front of me, guess what? The non-violence principle does not apply to only situations where you're being attacked. No. If somebody's being accosted in my presence, I have every right to put an end to that and to come to the aid of the person being attacked. And I would and I have. All right, I'll put it at that. I've done that since I was young. The very first times fights and stuff broke out in front of me, I've stepped up to the plate numerous times. I'll put it that way. All right, that's just a part of being a human being, aligned spiritually with the universe. You don't put up with that type of thing. And that's why I have a place in my heart for police officers. I really kind of feel bad for them that they've had all this administrative BS put on them and their job description's been corrupted. And now they instead of just being able to keep their minds and bodies ready to respond to violence and meet it with expertise in dealing with violence, they have so many other functionaries that shouldn't even exist in their job description. So my heart goes out to them. It really does. I would love to see them aligned with the profession in the way that it is truly meant to be, a voluntary profession where you're employed by the private citizens who desire to have your protection, and you only use your protection to protect. You do it as a service, aligned to the warrior being that you are. That's what anarchy is. And people seem to think that the funds would not be sufficient for somebody to operate in that way. Well, I disagree. There are so many private securities that get paid more than police officers already without anarchy, right? And I believe that we just haven't really. We take all these little sayings and these like ideas that have been floated around that keep people from questioning things, and we like grab onto them with anytime we're challenged, and we just push them out there and hope to protect ourselves with them as a shield so that we don't have to really think about things. But we really do need to think about things. We need to think about new ways of operating, new ways of being, new ways of functioning as spiritual beings in this world, because that's what we are. There's no getting around that. And that's exciting. This is exciting. This is exciting to know that there are other options outside this choreographed government monopoly on authority. On authority that's not even authority. That's in quotes. Because the only true authority is the one that we're all born under, which is natural law, which is governed by the universe, the creator of everything. We don't have to worry about any governance because natural law takes care of that. We don't have to worry about creating structures of authority. Natural law takes care of all that. Now, knowing that as a spiritual being and an anarchist, it's now my job to illustrate that, right? Because it's not illustrated enough in the anarchy. It's not. I go in search of illustrations of my points all the time, and I'm coming up short. And I'm a newbie in this, so I'm a little bit frustrated that there aren't people out there talking about new systems. And when I say system, that doesn't mean of authority. That means systems of cooperation with individuals that can step outside of the system at any point in time, that are not punished punitively for their interacting with the system or their choice not to interact with the system. All right? And now that I've dedicated myself to this, it's my job to actually to do something about it. I can't just sit there and rest on my laurels and wait for these ideas to manifest and for people to get it, because they won't. It will take people actually coming forward and I don't just mean on a live stream. I mean in the months and years to come, as Dayton deals with this tragic thing that happened last night. Having people that are willing to talk about it and to question where everybody else might be going with this, or where they most likely are going with this, which is, thank God for the police. I agree in a way. Thank God for them there at that point in time to be able to do the function of their true job. Thank God for that. Thank God more people are safe. But that doesn't mean that we just rest on our laurels in how we view the police. No. We have to understand that they've had their function corrupted by government, because they are not supposed to be a part of government. Police are not supposed to be a part of government. Government's not supposed to exist, first off. So if you can go to it from that point of view, it makes it really easy to understand things. So how would we operate? I'm not going to get too far into this, but I'm going to be coming to the end of this live stream soon, and I do want to touch on a few points. So I want to quickly get through this one, which is, how do we operate without government? How is it possible? Well, what are the things that are causing us to believe that we need government? Well, things like last night. A bunch of lives being lost to a maniac who has an agenda to kill people, and I would say has an agenda to die in a way that will make people go, thank God for the police being there. Look at this maniac with the rifle. We need to take away rifles. I think a lot of these mass shooters are going out there doing this in this way because they want to, they feel so, they're demons basically. They want, and when I say demons, I'm using that term loosely. I'm not talking about a spiritual entity. I'm talking about somebody who's manifesting a demonic agenda with their spiritual vessel. They are, you know how there's earth angels? They're earth demons, all right? So these earth demons, they decide, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill a bunch of innocent people. Maybe not innocent in the way of true innocence, but innocent as in not being able to defend themselves, innocent, and I might get into that a little bit as well. Innocent from violence, because everybody's innocent from violence. And people don't need to suffer violence. So this demon decides he's going to go out in a way not only to kill everyone, not only to get himself killed, but to interact in a way that is going to make it harder for us to keep our right to protect ourselves with what little tools we still have available. I'll just put it that way. I think that's a part of what these people are doing, and the reason why they do it the way they do it. So that we all go, oh, thank God for the police. And then we don't question how the police are a big part of this whole thing. And when I say police, I'm not talking about the individuals. I'm talking about the government stamp of a police officer. The stamp that they can't get out from under because that's where they get their paycheck, right? So I just want to be clear about it because, you know, I'm not against warriors. But we can't buy that as anarchists, and we have to have an answer for it when people start talking about it. And so I know I'm going to be having some hard conversations with some people that might want to talk about it, might say, thank God the police were there. I mean, I can agree with that at some point. So I'm sure some of my conversations are going to be like, yeah, thank God there was somebody there with a weapon to put down that maniac. But I think I'll leave it at that. Not thank God the police were there. thank God there was someone there with a weapon to put down that maniac. Yeah. Am I happy that my taxpayer dollars were used in such a way? No. But I'm still happy that there was somebody there with a weapon that could put down that maniac. But I know there's other systems for that to be accomplished. So I'm not going to stray. I'm not going to go on this tangent of making exceptions outside of anarchy for the need for police, because we don't have a need for police, at least not in the iteration of government being their sole providers for their income. They need to be outside of government, and their authority needs only to extend to the authority to patrol the areas they're to patrol for the citizens that are paying them to patrol that area, and it needs to be aligned with natural law. At no time are they to try to get involved in anything outside of protection. So if you know, and this can be extended to the citizenry. You know, we might want people to show up and take care of domestic violence issues in our neighborhoods. We might want that, right? That's what police officers do. That's what dispatchers do. They get these calls for these incidents that are functional things that the police officers should be doing, which is to show up and you know, deal with domestic violence issues and such, you know, robbery things of this nature, you know, warrior things the warriors are called to deal with. And I believe that, you know, it could still be voluntary, and we have technology in place. You know, there are people out there that would love to give their money away to police officers that are aligned with natural law, that are there to actually serve and protect. So I don't believe I believe the money is there to be had. If you took away all taxation, we'd have more money, and we'd have more of a voluntary relationship with spending our money and who we give it to, our neighbors. We'd get to know these police officers because we'd be funding them directly. And I'm going to end on this because this is kind of out of place for the tragedy, but it is a point that I do think that is something worth talking about, and that is the audibility of everything, right? And what our technologies are that can make these things happen. They'd be blockchain technologies. If we were all paid with cryptocurrencies, or even dollars, whatever, you can turn them into cryptocurrencies. They're already digital. There's already things outside of cryptocurrencies that can make what I'm going to talk about possible. But however you fund yourself as an individual, once we start to understand that we don't need to be reliant upon government to understand our relationship with stored values that we can interact with each other with. All right? I'll just put it that way for now. But once we have our stored values, our income from whatever it is we're doing in society, however we are contributing, it should be our voluntary way of transacting with others to get these services like police, fire, things like that. There are going to be people that go, you know, it's almost like tithing, right? There are going to be people that go, you know, here's my income. I want to give this much to the police force. I want to give this much to the libraries. I want to get, and you could do it like direct deposit, right? And it's not even like taxable income because taxes no longer exist. All it is it's you donating to the things that you find value in. So if people aren't finding value in it, you're not going to have the bureaucracy surrounding it. It's just going to disappear. And the true things that people do find value in, those things will get the funding. And not only that, people will start to understand about reputation, right? Because if you make your reputation auditable, like anybody can find out who you are, what you've done, things like that, you're going to be more inclined to understand how to deal with your shadow aspects that might make your reputation get damaged. If you deal with your shadow aspects, then you'll be able to function as a moral individual in the society that you're in. And there will be more moral individuals than are manifesting in this sick, twisted thing. And I'm going to be getting into how sick and twisted this thing that we live in is. I've been approaching it in my videos quite a bit. There's a plethora of it out there if you want to go take a deep dive on my channel. You'll find out exactly how I feel about all this stuff. And I do give a lot of examples, such as how I'm doing this video, with examples of exactly what I'm talking about, right? So it would be voluntary. It'd be like a tithe. So say there's a nonprofit that does great work. Well, I want to support this nonprofit. Well, you give it to them. Well, the money that you give to them, since it's on an auditable cryptocurrency, because I believe that's probably the best way to set up nonprofits, because then regular citizens can look at how they're spending their money, right? You can right away go in and see how they're spending their money. There will be services that will sprout up around the whole thing that will be there just to make it easier and more transparent for people to take a quick look at different nonprofits, different services, and how good of a job they're doing, right? And you want to be doing a good job, otherwise nobody's going to want to give you their money. See, we got to get out of this way of thinking that we need to come up with excuses for why we need government. We need to get outside of that. Think outside the box, people. Think outside the box. Do we really need government? Is it really a necessary evil? I don't think so. And I'm going to be spending the next few years of my life writing about it. Right now I'm writing a lot about it in even my daily poetry. I'm writing a poem every day. You can find my poetry on Steemit. Just look me up, Acoustic Stevo. You can also find me on Cent, that's CENT. It's ran on the cryptocurrency Ethereum, which is an awesome cryptocurrency that you can build things with. And there's an application that's basically a social media platform built on it called Cent. And my participation on that platform is a daily poem. And it's also, I put my daily poem also on Steemit, which is also another social media platform. And I'm building out. I'm finding more and more things to get involved with all the time. That's what it's about, people. Building out. Finding what you want to do and doing it. Putting the rubber to the pavement, so to speak. Not getting caught up in the ideas, because I've done that. Where, I mean, my brain is a fountain. My brain is a fountain, but if I never actually take the time to direct the waters of those fountains to where they might actually be useful, and it's just a fountain out in the middle of the desert that no one's using, that's on me. I have to go out and let people know that fountain's there. I have to go out and show them, because they're not going to find it on their own. It's sitting out in the middle of a desert. And I know that. That's why I only get 5 to 6 views on everything that I do. Even after putting all the time and the effort and the work into my presence online, I don't get any sort of audience, like consistent audience, beyond a few individuals, and I'm very thankful for that, because I think that those 5 to 6 views, I think they might be coming from the same people. And if you're one of those people, let me know. Say, hey, Acoustic Stevo, I watch you regularly. I do listen to your content. I don't even care if you hate me and you watch me for that. I'd like to know. I'd like to know if I have any consistent viewers, even if it's one. I know I have one, but I don't even know if he watches my videos anymore. I haven't talked to him in a while about it. But one is enough. One consistent viewer to listen to the stuff that's coming out of my fountain. All right? I'd like to know. So, these next few months and years, it's going to be a healing for Dayton. It's, we've already experienced a lot in these last few months. We had a number of tornadoes come through and totally totally demolished huge parts of our city, and we're still recovering from that big time. I've had personal property stuff to deal with because of that, and I've been blessed with it not being much compared to what's been around me. We had a KKK event come through our town. It was thankfully small, and even the counter demonstrators, nothing got out of hand, and it was pretty peaceful, thankfully. But just having that hate in our city, it sucks. But that's part of freedom of speech, dealing with these things. Because I look at it like it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for people to talk about the things that most people are too afraid to talk about that need to be talked about. So when a KKK rally comes through Dayton, Ohio, guess what? It spurred some conversations in my personal life that I'm very thankful for. And I'm sure it did for a number of Daytonians. So there's always a way to find a silver lining on whatever it is that's going on. The tornadoes, they brought our community together and showed us how strong we are as neighbors. People willing to step up, and I'm sure this mass shooting is going to do the same. So now I know I'm going to be functioning inside of a group of people that have been traumatized by an event that's tragic, and people are going to be needing healing. This is probably all I'm going to say on it. And I'm picking this moment because I want to use this moment to kind of let go of a bunch of the energy of my own personal anger surrounding it. Because I am personally angry. When my wife called and told me about this, my first thing was, I want to know who that person was. Because I want to make their life hell in any way I can. For at least a moment, if I can. And I do mean that. I mean, I would write this person in jail. Because it's my neighborhood. There's too many people out there for me to be doing it with all the people that are there left after something like this, but that haven't died at the hands of warriors that are protecting people, albeit not really functioning at the best capacity for their skill set, but warriors nonetheless. I'm going to be dealing with community people healing from that, and with the community people that want to put these warriors on a pedestal. And I'd say, you know what? This might be something to put them on a pedestal for, because that is a part of their job, serve and protect. And I think a lot of anarchists forget that in their disdain for the police. They forget that there are times like this where they step up to the plate and do their true role. And they have to sit in their bureaucratic misery for the rest of the time so that they can function. The soul-crushing thing that they have to go through of living in a corrupt bureaucracy that keeps them from their true function. To be able, there's at times like this, they can stand up and show their true function as a warrior. And I'll be on board for that. I'll probably even stand up and probably won't say the Pledge of Allegiance, because I don't pledge allegiance to a flag. But I will show it respect, not the flag, because it represents a government, right? And I'm an anarchist, so I'm done with that stuff. I'm done with the ritualistic things that people do to prove that they're patriotic. And I am patriotic, but I'm not patriotic to a government. I'm patriotic to my homeland, America, and I'm patriotic to the human beings all over the world. And all the other countries that deserve freedom as much as America does. That's what the Human Patriot Channel is about. It's about true freedom. And true freedom is not confined to the worship of government. That has absolutely nothing to do with that, as a matter of fact. True freedom is about being an individual and doing your life work as a spiritual being. If you could do that in this society, man, you've pulled something off. Let me tell you, you've pulled something off. You've somehow washed your brain of all the toxicity that's been programming it for your entire life, I applaud you. You are truly a brother or sister to me. So if you are a brother or sister out there, a fellow anarchist that has managed to clean their brain from all the propaganda and programming that's been instilled upon you since you were forming your brain in their most malleable years, I applaud you. Keep up the good work. Find more work to do. Step up your game. Let's do it, people. Because things like this are going to keep happening. And if we give in to the fear, because that's what it is, fear. I'm not going to... My wife and my son were about 2 blocks away from where this incident went down last night, only 2 hours before. Down there in that part of the city where the Oregon district is, there's a little theater that my son, I got to see him perform in yesterday. It was in Sweeney Todd. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. So if you're in Dayton, today's, I think, their last show, you might want to go catch it because it's really good. And I hope it still goes on tonight, despite this tragedy. I know there's a lot of things that are getting shut down downtown, but I hope and pray that's not one of them. I'm definitely not going to go out and function any differently in society. I'll tell you this much. In martial arts, one of the things you learn is to be aware of your surroundings. And I would say that's probably the best thing you can do. Don't shut your brain down and go into any type of recreational activity without understanding that you need to be aware of your surroundings, right? That might mean don't get inebriated. Or if you do get inebriated, maybe don't do it out in public. Or if you do it out in public, maybe make sure that you have somebody there that's got your best interest at heart, that you've known for a long time, isn't going to ditch you, and is going to be able to step up to the plate in your mental capacity that is non-existent when you're inebriated. All right? You got to take some responsibility for functioning out in society of your own protection. And I would highly suggest everyone on earth to get involved in martial arts, to learn how to protect themselves. I think that would go a long way into people understanding how anarchist societies could function. Because if everybody knows how to protect themselves, that kind of evens the playing field, so to speak. If we all understand how to be aware and how to be fully functional spiritual, physical beings in our environments that we're in, things like this are going to be less likely to occur. Not only for the reason that everybody's going to understand how to protect themselves, but more moral beings will be manifesting, more beings in line with true spirituality and things of that nature, to combat the darkness, the demons that choose to take on that persona, that choose to manifest themselves as demons, that are feeding off all the darkness, that are using that to program themselves to an even further darkness. Because that's how these things are happening. It has nothing to do with the gun in that guy's hands or how many magazines he had on him when he died that still had, bullets in them. It has nothing to do with that. And you know what? These dark occultists that put us all under the system, that want us to cling to it because of fear, their main goal is for us to have enough fear that we give away our personal right to protect ourselves. All right? That ain't going to happen in America. That's one thing that I am so happy about and gleeful about almost every day, is that there's enough seeds sown into the American population that of our Second Amendment rights. And when they're beyond Second Amendment, they're human rights, but it's glorified and in this government document that everyone can look towards as a I guess a light to program themselves with, even though we have that right in ourselves, regardless of that document. And if somehow they append that document, it doesn't mean that that right goes out the door. Hell no, it don't. We'll still have that right. And that might mean that I actually do go out and buy a gun at that point. Just because they say I can't. Let them throw me in jail for it. At that point, I don't think I'll want to be out in this society functioning in it anymore. I would rather be imprisoned for defending my right to bear arms. I'll put it that way. And I don't even have a gun. You know? So we got to be aware that these narratives are going to start to come up in our midst in Dayton. But you know what? The one cool thing about it, I think there's enough red-blooded Americans. And when I say red-blooded, I mean Americans that got that fire in their soul, that aren't going to fall for certain narratives like we need to hand in our guns. I don't think that this would ever happen in Dayton, Ohio. I really don't. Like, to where that type of a shift in how people go about thinking about their right to bear arms would be affected by a tragedy such as this. Thank God. But it might affect how people view the need for law enforcement, which I'm trying to combat, being an anarchist, or at least trying to help them understand that it can be different. You know, we can still have warriors and not have government. So I'm getting ready to be done with this. You know, my heart, again, I want to end on this because I'm going to be stopping here soon. My heart and my mind and my healing energy, my psychic healing energy, which we all have, start using it, people. Just believe in it. Have faith. Start to use it with faith, and you'll see that it's people around you and your own body and your own self will be healed by it. All right? So my psychic, I'm choosing to use my psychic healing energy to go to those broken hearts in our city right now. Those people, those families that are so affected by this tragedy. Those people on the periphery that are loving, peaceful, harmonious, righteous-hearted individuals that are heartbroken over the loss of life in our community in such a way as this. So that's where my heart's going to be for quite a while. And I struggled over whether or not I should do this live stream, but I feel a lot better. You know, because a part of this channel is documenting my journey, and this is my journey. And when I say my journey, it's a gift. I'm doing this journey not just for myself. I'm doing it for everyone around me. And that's not because I'm some kind of anything. It's just because that's what I'm doing. That's what I find enjoyment in. I find enjoyment in evolving spiritually and doing it right in front of everyone's eyes. So that's what I'm doing. I ask you to join me. Become one of my friends, like in my real life. It's real easy to do. All you have to do is start having conversations with me. I'm on plenty of social media. I'm a musician, so I'm always looking for people to collaborate with musically. I would like to start writing some songs that touch on some topics that are pertinent instead of just mindless pop. I've written enough of that type of thing. So, yeah. So I'm going to end this now. I appreciate anybody that watches this or is watching it. So have a good day, everyone.